Now, I know there are some of you out there who say that I only talk about the things wrong with Star Wars these days, and neglect to talk about the things that I love, nor do I ever try and offer any possible solutions for the troubles Lucasfilm faces with some of their fans. So what I'm going to do in this video is talk about one of my favorite characters a bit, and how Lucasfilm could use her to begin to possibly fix their problems. And that character, of course, is Ahsoka Tano. And before I get started, no, I'm not honestly expecting Disney and or Lucasfilm to heed any of my suggestions here. This is just me playing armchair president of Lucasfilm, if you will, and discussing what I do in an alternate reality where I suddenly was making the calls. And as with all my videos, I'd love to hear from you afterwards, telling me what you do if you suddenly found yourself calling the shots at Lucasfilm. Anyway, the absolute first thing I do is greenlight an anthology movie or Star Wars story featuring the character of Ahsoka Tano, written and possibly directed by Dave Filoni. And let me quickly acknowledge that yes, this would be a huge risk for many reasons, not the least of which is that, so far, Filoni has not strayed from the world of animation and has virtually no experience when it comes to live action. However, considering Filoni is set to direct the first episode of the upcoming series The Mandalorian and is also an executive producer on this project, it's pretty clear that Lucasfilm realizes what most fans already have, that Filoni's role with the company should be expanded beyond just animation. He is, in the eyes of many fans after all, about the closest thing to a Padawan or heir apparent that George Lucas ever had, considering how closely the two worked together on the Clone Wars animated series, and how much Filoni learned from him about Star Wars during that time. Not to mention, it's pretty rare for Filoni to fail to mention how devoted he is to honoring Lucas and the true spirit of Star Wars in any interview he does. Simply put, he's probably about the next best thing there is to George Lucas, at least in terms of understanding what Star Wars is or should be according to Lucas. Another huge risk factor with such a project then is that, outside of the core fandom at least, Ahsoka is a virtually unknown character, which means her name alone is going to be pretty meaningless to the average moviegoer. However, what putting her front and center in a movie would do is allow the Star Wars fanbase, including those who are currently labeled as sexist for not embracing the character of Rey, to truly rally around a beloved female character, to show those outside of the fandom that Star Wars fans love good female characters, that the issue some fans have with Rey is not her gender, but simply they feel she is not a good character. This also essentially offers Disney and Lucasfilm an indirect way to defend their fans, because as I discussed in one of my last videos, and I'll put a link to it in the description below, in today's world there is almost no way for Disney and or Lucasfilm to come out and try and defend or win back those fans who didn't like Rey. No way for them to say, we understand that some fans just didn't like the way the character was handled, and it has nothing to do with her gender. Because any attempt to do so would likely be intentionally misconstrued by some outlets and certain individuals on social media as Disney and Lucasfilm condoning those fans who are perceived to be intolerant of women in Star Wars. A belief that might start to be rendered ridiculous by the excitement within the fanbase with the announcement of a live-action movie featuring Ahsoka. There's also the potential to maybe, just maybe, start to win back at least some of the fans who've walked away from the franchise at this point, even if they're not necessarily the biggest fans of Ahsoka. Because giving fans such a movie, saying to them we're trying to give you the type of Star Wars content you want, is not only a good first step to fixing things, it's pretty much what all good companies strive to do, create satisfied customers. And yes, if you want your business to grow, you have to generate new fans. But what good does it do you to make a new customer or fan if it costs you one or two you already had? Also with such a movie that features a character that has been an intricate part of the story of Anakin Skywalker, there'd be another potential way to lure in not only fans who might not be all that crazy about Ahsoka in the first place, but to also appeal to the average moviegoer who's never even heard of her. And that's to do basically what Rogue One did, and include a legacy character in the advertising and then give them at least some part to play in the actual movie. And in this case, that legacy character could and should be Luke Skywalker, of course. Because, let's be honest here, a lot of fans were disappointed by the Luke they got in The Last Jedi, and want a chance to see him flex his Force muscles a bit, if you will. Much like how Vader got a chance to show off a bit in Rogue One. They want to see Luke do something impressive. Well, maybe I should say something more visually impressive than projecting himself across the galaxy. And assuming Mark Hamill would be up for it, and I'd imagine he would be despite some grumblings about wanting to be done with Star Wars, since it doesn't feel the same for him without Carrie Fisher, which I do understand. You could easily enough, with the technology we have nowadays, make him look much younger, to fit whatever time period the movie would be set in. I'd have to imagine that time period would be somewhere between episodes 6 and 7. As for how do you bring Ahsoka into live action, well, I think motion capture would be about the best bet. I'm just not sure any actress could truly make it work or look right. Ahsoka has always had a grace and fluidity about her that someone wearing a large headpiece is going to struggle to be able to pull off. Plus, Ashley Eckstein would have to do the voice. Anyone else doing it just wouldn't work or feel right, in my opinion. Then there's of course the question of what the movie would actually be about, and this too could offer Disney and Lucasfilm another opportunity to do some patchwork with their fans by expanding on why exactly Luke had so badly lost his way when we see him in The Last Jedi, even though one obvious story most fans would probably like to see would be the search for Ezra Bridger, which is where we last saw Ahsoka. And even though this is a story that no doubt will get played out somewhere sometime, I don't know if it works for the big screen since only hardcore fans will have any real investment in finding Ezra, though the movie itself could certainly try to give those who don't know Ezra a reason to care about finding him. Instead, what would probably work best for the plot of the movie is if Ahsoka and Luke, years before the events of The Force Awakens, have to come together to discover some lost truth about the Jedi Order that perhaps somehow concerns Anakin and or his alter ego Darth Vader, and this secret could begin to unravel Luke's faith in the Jedi somehow, which prompts him to eventually go in search of the first Jedi Temple for answers about what the Jedi believed at their foundation. But since Luke doesn't actually find the temple till after he loses bent to the dark side, he, as we basically see in The Last Jedi, has no real desire to find any of those answers once he gets there, and instead just places all the blame on the Jedi. And the reason why he places the blame on them could be because, at some point, the Jedi were somehow responsible for the creation of Snoke and failed to take the necessary actions to stop him because of some flaw in their code or beliefs, which is the secret he and Ahsoka might discover. And since Snoke, as Luke himself says in The Last Jedi, got to Ben first and corrupted him, Luke places the blame for his nephew's fall on the Jedi for failing to stop Snoke when they could have, and on himself for blindly following their ways. And yeah, I know this sounds more like a Luke movie than an Ahsoka movie, but this is just one idea I've come up with off the top of my head that I feel could aid Disney and Lucasfilm in their quest to unite the fan base, assuming that's what they'd like to do, which I'd hope and imagine it is because, at the end of the day, they no doubt purchased Lucasfilm to make money off of it. And again, it's hard to do that if you chase away too many of your existing fans without creating enough new ones to not only take their place, but to exceed the number you used to have. And obviously, the perfect scenario would be losing very few fans and creating many, many new ones. In closing here, I know there are some fans out there who want completely new and different stories and characters, and would roll their eyes if another lead role in a Star Wars movie was given to a female character. I also know not everyone is a huge fan of Ahsoka, which is fine. But if done right, I think there's great potential with a movie featuring this character to not only heal some wounds within the fanbase and help change the outsider's perception of this fanbase, but to create a truly memorable Star Wars movie that could be a tie-in to the beloved Skywalker saga and give Luke a moment to truly shine. This is a movie that could and likely would see fans and haters of The Last Jedi alike come together and be excited about something again. In my opinion, this is exactly the type of project Lucasfilm should be pursuing, but as usual, I don't want to just take my word for it, so I'll be putting up a poll here on YouTube asking how you feel about this idea, or you can let me know in the comments below and I'll discuss the results of the poll and some of your comments in a future video. Well, that's all I've got for this time, and now of course it's your turn to let me know what you think about this idea and if you believe it could indeed be good for the fanbase and franchise in general. Either way, let me know in the comments below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.